So we're doing this lime plaster here in this oven. I did a coat last week, made it very coarse and rough with a very coarse sand. So now I can put a finer sand over it. So first I put this lime wash over it. It's just lime and water. And this is kind of the glue for the plaster to adhere to. So I put this on. So you want to make sure that the oven is wet and has this lime wash in order for the plaster to adhere to it. So I do that. And I take my plaster, 3-part sand, 1 part hydraulic lime plaster, and I put it on. So I just, since it's rounded, it's kind of a curved shape, it's hard to use a trowel for putting this on, so I use my hands. Now be sure you wear gloves for this, because the lime can dry out your hands a lot. So I kind of smear section. I try not to get too far ahead of myself. Try not to smear so much that it starts to set up too fast. So I put this on, the first coat was put on about a 1/4 inch, and so I'm putting this one on also about a 1/4 inch, so it's about a 1/2 inch thickness of for the plaster. So now, once I do a section about this much, then I take this material here. This is I put this black soap. It's olive oil soap. It's got Savon Noir. It's from France. I also got this at Transmineral. So I put this on. I mix this 1 part of the olive oil soap and 1 part water. And there's a chemical reaction that happens between the olive oil soap and the hydraulic lime plaster that makes it very waterproof. And so while the plaster is still wet, I brush the soap on there so that the soap kind of absorbs and mixes in with the plaster. So this isn't really considered a sealer, it's just a reaction that happens between the lime and the soap. So I get it on like that, and then I take I use like a yogurt lid, a round piece of plastic yogurt lid, and this is what I use to smooth it out. Right? So I do this for the flat parts, for the areas that are flat, like down here, I'll be able to use the trowel. But since this is pretty curvy, I can, kind of burnish it some with the trowel. But I find it's easier just to use this plastic, dip it in some water, and then just kind of smooth it out, like so. And then if it's getting too hard to work with, and it's getting like so that this isn't really doing anything, you can get a sponge and you can smooth it out also with a sponge and just kind of work it in that way. And then you can go at it again with the yogurt lid. So you have to act kind of fast, and you can see here that I have I'm working in the shade. It's important to have some kind of shade covering. You don't want to be working right in the sun. You want to have some shade protection because you want it to dry slow, and you also want to keep it wet. So while it's drying, you want to spray it down with some water, right? And there's like this part here that I just did. I'll spray this down. You can even, at the end of the day, you can even put a whole wet thing of like burlap, put that over the whole thing to let it dry slowly. So this is a hydraulic, meaning that it actually sets in water. Water actually makes it stronger and turns it back into limestone. It's more expensive than hydrated lime, but it works a lot better. So this is what I've been using for a while. So I would let this set up for like another week or so, maybe 2 weeks. set it for a couple weeks, and then to make it completely waterproof, then I can put linseed oil, maybe a couple coats of linseed oil, and with some mixed with some mineral spirits to help it penetrate into the plaster, and then this should be able to withstand the rain, so we wouldn't need to have a roof over this. So that's that. But you notice also I put stones along the bottom. That's really important. You don't want to have any water wicking up. You don't want the cob to be touching the ground, so you want to have some kind of stones. And we also have this on some concrete cement pavers, so it's a pretty solid surface. And so I should be able to finish plastering this today. So thanks. That's the process of plastering a oven using a lime plaster. Okay.
Looking good.